If you think that colorism does not exist in Africa, I'm here to tell you that it does. Colorism exists in African communities. And I think the problem is that we've become so used to it, so immune to it, that maybe we didn't even realize that it was colorism. And maybe we just didn't even have the name to put behind what was actually happening. There's no way that you can say colorism is not an African problem and that it just exists amongst Black people in the West. When colorism started during the colonial era in Africa, the colonizers went to Africa with their ideas of what beauty was, and that passed on to the Africans that were there at the time before they were even taken to other parts of the world. Before I continue, if you're visiting my channel for the first time, hello, my name is Benita, and if you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. I really wanted to talk about this topic because I came across a comment that said that colorism does not exist in Africa. We are not racist towards our own people. And I thought, that's not true. That's not true. Yes, maybe not everyone is a colorist, but coming from an African home and growing up in Africa, I have experienced colorism. I have seen colorism. I have heard colorism like in action. And I think that we as Africans sometimes tend to think that some problems are so far away from us, like, oh no, that's an American problem. That's a European problem. It has nothing to do with us. Sometimes we look over what's happening at home, and we need to be reminded that sometimes we also tend to treat each other in horrible ways just because of the color of our skin. And this issue starts at home. This is an issue that is born and bred at home. Because why is it that when it's time to get married, for instance, your parents might tell you, oh, make sure you marry someone who's lighter than you so that your child can have a nice complexion. Or when the baby is born, the grandparents might say, oh, don't keep the child out in the sun too long, okay? Because he's going to get too dark. We don't want the child to be too dark. I have heard this for myself. And it really made me think, like, wow, why is it a problem if the child is a bit darker? Or why keep the child away from the sun just because you want him to be light in complexion? And these type of comments are not only reserved for the kids. I know when I moved abroad, I had comments like, oh, your skin complexion is getting so much lighter. It's changed so much. You can totally see that you're abroad. You're looking so lighter and beautiful. And for me, it's like, I never said I wanted to be lighter. I am very, very happy with my skin complexion. Sometimes I cannot even blame our grandparents or our great grandparents because they come from a different time where things were different. They were taught that being lighter meant being beautiful. I mean, not much has changed now. I mean, that's still the beauty standard, right? But I think the difference now is that there's a lot of Black empowerment, Black self love, and people are starting to embrace themselves and to speak out more about it, whereas before it was really different. um but it still doesn't change the fact that words have an effect on you, especially as a child and as you grow up. And if you've grown up in a home where you've been made fun of because you were dark, or where you've been told that you're not beautiful, your sibling is more beautiful because your sibling is lighter than you, of course that's going to affect you as an adult. And the issue is you deal with that at home in some homes, right? But then you also deal with that outside at school, amongst your friends. Sometimes at school your friends can finish you with jokes. I'm telling you, like, they can make fun of you so bad that you end up not liking your own skin color because of the things that your friends say to you. And your friends might be joking around and saying these things, but it's hurtful and it impacts you. Those are things that you never forget. Sometimes colorism is not even that like in your face, that obvious. Sometimes it's subtle. I remember once I was walking with a friend of mine, and this specific friend is really, really light skinned. She's a yellow bone, I guess I would say. And we were walking, and I just noticed how everyone, I say everyone, I mean all the guys were paying attention to my friend. Not that I have any problem with that. She's a beautiful person. But I completely saw the difference when I would walk with that lighter friend of mine than when I would walk with one of my darker friends. When I walked with my darker friend, sometimes I would get most of the attention, whereas when I walked with my lighter skinned friend, she would get most of the attention. And so it really made me think. I thought about both experiences and I was like, wow, so this is what colorism looks like. Sometimes the truth is that you tend to be favored when you are more lighter. I guess the lighter you are, the more attention you get. Even if your darker friend is more beautiful than you as a lighter person might get most of the attention. And this does not only relate to guys or to dating, but you might get an opportunity that your other friend wanted just because you are lighter than your other friend. And that is the reality. And then we wonder why Africa struggles with skin bleaching.
Africans, we need to stop lying to ourselves. Colorism is real. Colorism exists in Africa. Why do you think that 40% of African women bleach their skin, according to the World Health Organization? Because society tells them, their African society tells them that their dark skin is inferior. As a child, I hated myself, became suicidal, and had childhood trauma because fellow Ghanaians told me on a regular basis how ugly I was and how undesirable my dark skin was.
Did you know that as of 2024, 27% of African people bleach their skin actively? 27% of the African population. That is a lot. A lot of people are not happy with their skin color and they are trying to be something that they are not because they are trying to fit into this standard of beauty. It is more than just a cosmetic thing. It's more than what we see. This thing is deeply rooted. It comes from so much trauma and history that honestly it would take forever for us to unpack that. But isn't it interesting that the lie that the colonizers told us way back in the day is still working today? People are still changing their skin color even though they know that those products are harmful. Those products can damage your skin. They could even lead to more serious complications. But even though we know these things, some of us continue to still bleach our skin because we're trying to achieve the lighter look, because we want to be accepted, because we want to be considered beautiful, because I don't know, we just want society to accept us. And sometimes we just want to accept ourselves. This is a problem that I don't know if it will ever be fixed, but I hope it will be fixed someday, because how do you tell a group of people that have been told that they are ugly, undesirable, not beautiful, how do you change that to self love? I think it could change, but it's definitely going to take a very long time. I think the only way to start to see some form of change is to bring awareness to this issue. It's something that I feel like we need to start talking about more often. We need to start putting a name behind the things that we experience. It is colorism. And if we start talking about these things in our communities, in our families, at school, at work, I wish I had this conversation when I was a teenager, because it would have saved me from a lot of self doubt and a lot of low self esteem regarding the color of my skin. So I think that conversations need to start happening. And I think that the adults, the parents, the grandparents, the siblings, the family members, the friends, we all need to be more careful and more aware of the things that we say to each other, because we might be saying them jokingly, but those things affect the other person. Just because your daughter is dark skinned doesn't mean that you should give her names and laugh at her and make fun of her and call her charcoal or whatever else you might call her. You might think it's a joke, but that child is going to grow up looking at herself as charcoal, as undesirable, as not beautiful, as too dark, and that might lead her to finding alternatives such as skin bleaching. So yeah, I think we just need to be more careful and more aware and start to have these discussions. And hopefully, we can start to see some small change in the near future. If you've made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. I made a video around the same topic about a year ago, but it wasn't about colorism in Africa. It was just on the topic of colorism. And I think that it ties in nicely with this discussion. Maybe you might find it interesting, so I'm going to link it at the end of this video. Please do go check it out and let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching and have a blessed day. I'll see you next time. Bye.